Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalam, ala rasulillah. We're continuing from our first video in a series of 5 videos that will allow us to review the important concepts taken or to be taken in level 1C. Yesterday we looked at the ism, and we divided the ism into 2 categories. That is mu'arab, which means that the ending changes with a fatha, a kasra, or a dhamma, and mabni, which is an ism that doesn't change regardless of its grammatical position. We then said that a part of the book's lessons, or what we're studying, is that plurals fit in both categories. There are plurals that are mu'arab, that change, and that's the vast majority of them. And that there are plurals that are mabni, that don't change, that they keep the same structure that they have. We also mentioned that those plurals, those plural isms that are mu'arab, they also can fit into other categories, which is jam'u taksir, or broken or irregular plurals. And those are plurals that the original singular form changes when you change it into the plural form. And that's what we looked at yesterday. And in today's lesson, the second day of the 5 lessons, we're going to be looking at the other type of plural that doesn't change. And we'll also be looking at pronouns, plural pronouns, or dhama'ir, which also fit in that mabni, or built or safe category, those regular categories that do not change. Before we do that, we want to look at the homework that the classwork that we had yesterday, to make sure that we understood. So if you haven't done your classwork yet, you'll either want to skip over this part or turn it off until you actually do it. So that way you actually have a chance to do the activity. Okay, so here what we were supposed to do is to take the look at the plural form, which has been highlighted and underlined, and we were simply going to change that to the singular form. Okay, the first one that we had was al-qasas, and we saw that al-qasas was a bit weird, because even though it was the plural, and even though we claimed it to be the plural of qissa, we didn't see it under there in the Hansword Dictionary. So I'm just going to go back to the Hansword Dictionary for a moment. And so we saw qasas here by itself. Now, what you don't see, which is an odd thing, the electronic version, I'm losing more and more confidence in it as I use it, because there's just so many things that just end up being deleted, I guess, in the transfer process. But if you look here, you see the COLL period, and that COLL means colloquial, means that it's used in regular everyday speech amongst people, but it's not a formal term. And so if you look in your dictionary, the Hansword Dictionary, in the same exact place, when you see the word or the entry for qasas, what you're going to see is that right at the end of it, it's going to say COLL, meaning colloquial, which means that according to these authors, qasas is not fusha. That's what they mean by colloquial. It's used by the people, but it's not standard Arabic. And this is an important point, because the Quran and the Sunnah are considered by Arabs to be, even for many non-Muslims, to be the standard of Arabic speech. And so because of that, if it's found in the Quran or in the Sunnah, then it is automatically deemed to be formal, and it's all automatically deemed to be standard and appropriate Arabic. So the fact that we have qasas in the Quran, in the beginning of Surah Yusuf, and also at the end, the second to the last ayat, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ, that in their stories are lessons for those who have insight. The fact that it's used in the Quran automatically puts it in that formal category. And so again, The authors of these dictionaries, although they've done a magnificent job, they've put together a magnificent piece of work, still, because they don't have a religious background, then again, they're not going to be privy to, or they may not have, they may make errors in that area. So qasas is our plural for qissa. Simply they just didn't get that one. All right, so just keep that in mind. So now we're going to the other ones. We did ikhwa yesterday as well. You should have found ikhwa under akh, meaning brother. Also, we saw that it was in the actual Medina book, so that one should not have been a problem. If we look at number 3, which is ahadith, then again, you're always going to look for that 3-letter root, and you're going to look for the extras here. And so Hamza can be an extra, Aleph can be an extra, Ya can be an extra, and so what you end up with is hadatha. If you go to hadatha, which is the verb, and then you're going to skip the verb and start looking at the isms that come underneath it, you'll find the word hadith. Just like we say the prophetic traditions, hadith, a narration. So the plural of that is ahadith. Ahadith. So you put a hamza in the beginning and an aleph after the first letter, and then the rest of the word is the same. So if you were to take that aleph off, then you would still have hadith there. So it's ahadith is the plural of hadith. Anfusukum, that hamza again is extra. The kum here makes it plural. So we're left with nafasa. Okay, so if you look up nafasa, if you look up nafsun, then soul or self or so on. And so anfus are selves or souls. So you would find it under nafsun. That would be our ism nafs. Nun fatha, fa sukun, and then sin. Next one we have darahim. Darahim. Now this one's interesting because we don't really have, at least in the dictionary, we don't have a verb for it. So if you looked under dal ra ha, then you'll find dal ra ha mim, which is dirham, which is a piece of silver, and then darahim is the plural of that. Here we have al abwab. Okay, and that should look pretty familiar. Again, the hamza is extra and the aleph is extra. That's one of these plural forms. And so we're left with ba wa ba. If you remember, ba wa ba is our asl for bab. And so al-abwab is the plural of bab. Here we have aba'i. That e at the end means my, and so that's extra. So if we take that off, we're left with aba. Now you see that med at the beginning, which we've been doing the fa'il form for those words that begin with hamza. So you'll know that med means that an aleph has been added after the hamza. So that aleph is probably extra. The hamza is an original letter, and so this is actually the plural of ab. So ab is a father, and aba with a hamza at the end is the plural of that. So the plural of fathers. Here we have arbab. Now that double hamza there might seem a bit funny. That first hamza is really asking a question. Okay, so he's asking them arbab. So take that first hamza off and you're left with arbab. Now arbab still follows the same sequence of an added hamza and an added aleph. If we take both of those off, we're left with rabb. So rabb is our singular and arbab is our plural. We come to the next one. We have asma. Now this one, because you're used to saying ism, it was probably difficult for you to find this one because asma really comes from sumu. Sin, mim, wow. Okay, so under sin, mim, wow, you'll see ism. And then the plural of ism or name is asma. And then we have aba again, which we've already taken above, which is the plural of ab for fathers. Okay, so those are the plurals that you should have looked for and you should have found. If you did not find them, then now you have a little bit of extra information with which you can go back and look in your dictionary to check to see where you, for example, why you didn't find it, and see if you can actually find the word now. And if not, if you can't find it after having tried, then it's something we can discuss and make time for in our Arabic class together on Sunday. Okay, so I can go ahead and get rid of that sheet and get rid of this one as well. Okay, so today's lesson, continuing where we left from yesterday. Yesterday we talked about jam'u taksir, the broken or irregular plural, where the actual form of the word is changed. Today what we want to talk about is the jam' salim. Jam' salim. Salim here meaning safe or preserved. So the jam' salim is a preserved regular plural, which means that those basic letters that are constructed in a certain way in the singular form, they retain their same structure in the plural form. If that's the case, then how do we make them plural? We make them plural by adding waw and noon. By adding waw and noon, we indicate that the word has now changed to a plural. So we saw some examples of that yesterday, and we'll repeat those examples here today, and we'll talk about some of the principles connected to that. So the first thing that we see is mudarris. Mudarris is a teacher. So mim, del, ra, sin, certain harakat we already have, yeah, mudarris. When we change that to the plural, it becomes mudarrisun. I shouldn't put that shadda on there. Mudarrisun. Okay, so no shadda on the scene. That was just a pronunciation error. So we have mudarris and then mudarrisun. So we've kept the word exactly how it is, and we've only added a waw and a noon. When all you do is add a waw and a noon, then it's considered salim. Now, because these words are masculine, then it's particularly, this form is called particularly jam' mudhakkar salim. Yeah, jam' mudhakkar salim. So this is the masculine preserved plural. Okay. Here we have muhandis, which is an engineer. The plural of that is muhandisun. Okay, so muhandis, muhandisun. Okay, here we have falah. Now falah is on our fa'al form, and I don't think this group took the fa'al form. The fa'al form shows a job or an occupation or something that someone does a lot. So when you say someone is a sahir, you're saying he's a sorcerer. If you say he's a sahar, he's like a professional, trained sorcerer. If you say someone is a kadhib, then you're saying he's a liar. If you say that someone is a kadhab, you're saying they're a habitual liar. If you say that someone is a kafir, you're saying they're a disbeliever. If you say they're a kafar, they're like an insolent, like kafir to the max. Yeah? So here we have falah, which is a farmer. And so when you have a word that's on the form fa'al, then you're going to add the waw, and the noon is going to keep its structure. That's different from if it's on the fa'il form, like talib. Talib is on the fa'il form, but it doesn't keep that form. Sometimes it does, like salih. Salih means righteous. You change salih to salihun. So with the regular fa'il form, sometimes the plural becomes broken, and sometimes the plural is preserved. But with the fa'al form, it is preserved. Here we have mujtahid, a jurist or a hard worker, and then we have mujtahidun. And then here we have Muslim, yeah, and then we have Muslimun. So what I hope you see in this pattern, aside from the fa'al form, is that you also see that if the word begins with a meme with a dhamma, and that takes us in a whole different category of verb, which we're not ready to deal with yet. If it begins with a meme and a dhamma, then it's going to be preserved in the plural form, which means we'll just simply add a waw and a noon to it. So mu'min, that didn't come in this list, would become mu'minun. Yeah. Now, the same works for feminine. For the feminine forms, you have regular and broken plurals. Now, in general, if you add the aleph and the ta to the end of a word, it's considered a preserved plural. Jama' mu'annath salim. Jama' mu'annath salim. That it's a preserved feminine plural. And so, but when we look at the concept of being preserved, we're preserving it in its masculine form, not in its feminine form. Because remember, for the feminine form, we added the ta marbuta to show that it was feminine. But the original word there is talib. And so don't consider preserved to be that this ta marbuta has to stay there. No. The ta marbuta is going to change into an aleph and a ta maftuha, an open ta. But the preservation is in the original word, which is talib. So taliba becomes talibat, preserved. Mudarrisa becomes mudarrisat. Tabiba becomes tabibat. So you see there's preservation in many of these feminine words. Zoja, zojat, ukht, akhawat. So that one kind of changes. That's kind of broken there. But they put it here with them because it preserves the aleph and the ta. But then we also have the broken plurals, and that's for the plurals that are shared between masculine and feminine, like some of those adjectives. So judud, kibar, sigar, and tiwal. Those are considered broken plurals for feminine because they're shared between masculine and feminine. Okay, so that's the concept. That's the first concept. We have jam mudhakkar salim and jam muannath salim. That we have preserved plurals. For the feminine form, we add an aleph and a ta. And for the masculine form, we add a waw and a noon. So we'll just recapping some of the information that we've taken so far. So we've looked at the concept of mu'arab, and we said mu'arab is where the ending changes, like the word talib. It could be talibun, talibin, taliban. Baytun, baytan, baytin, imra'atun, imra'atan, imra'atin. Even for isms that are mamnu min as-sarf, like Maryamu, it won't take a kasra, but the fact that it can change from a dhamma to a fatha still makes it mu'arab. Yani mu'arab means that it can change it changes its diacritical marks or its vowel endings to indicate that there's been a grammatical change. Whereas mabni, it doesn't change regardless of where it is in the sentence, regardless of what grammatical form it's functioning. So hada doesn't change. Ulaika doesn't change. Huwa, pronoun, doesn't change. Ana doesn't change. Men, those question words, men, mata, madha, don't change. They're considered mabni. Here in Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayat number 42, Allah says, Samma'una lil kadhibi, akkaluna lis-suht. That describing the Jews, they constantly listen to lies and constantly eat bribery or impermissible wealth. What I wanted to show you here is that, again, this would be one of our preserved plurals because it's on the fa'al form. So here we have sama. Sama, if you can see that root there, comes from sami'a, which means to listen. A person who heard or listened would be a sami', right? But if a person's always listening, then he would be called a sama', okay? Here we have akal. Can you figure out what akal comes from? That's right, it comes from akala, which means to eat. A person who eats would be considered an akil, okay, with that med on the beginning to mark that hamza and that aleph fusing, akil. So that would be an eater or someone who eats. But akal shows that he always eats. So he says, Allah says, here's samma'una, so there's more than one of them. The waw and the noon indicate for us that now it's plural. But it's a preserved plural because of the waw and the noon. Samma'una lil kadhib, akkaluna lis-suht. Constantly listening to lies, constantly eating impermissible wealth and bribes. Okay? When we come down here to the bottom of the ayat, it says, Inna Allah yuhibbu, Allah loves the muqsitin. Muqsitin, again, we have the meme with a dhamma. Now, what I want you to notice here is that here we don't have a wow and a noon. Here we have a ya and a noon. What does that mean? Well, what happens is just like in the singular form, if you have a harf jar or something like that, it takes a kesra. The ism takes a kesra at the end. Well, again, when it's even preserved plurals, they're still considered mu'rab, so their endings are going to change. What happens is that each haraka has a sister letter. It has a letter that goes with it to help it elongate. So for fatha, that elongation letter is an alif. For dhamma, that elongation letter is a waw. And for kesra, that elongation letter is a ya. So you'll notice here that when we said ekkalun, there was a dhamma on the last letter. And so when we changed it with a waw, when we elongated it. When we made it into plural, we made it plural with the waw. Why did we use a waw? Because of the dhamma. Okay? But here, because this word needs a kesra, because of the grammatical change that's happened, then we're not going to use a waw, because waw doesn't go with kesra. Ya goes with kesra. It's the same thing. That's why we still have a noon there. All the kesra and the ya mean is that it's in a different state. So it's majroor because, for example, a harf jar or something like that. Here it's we don't want to talk about it because it's a different grammar. It's a different grammar that we'll take in book 2. The idea here is that a change has happened grammatically, which has caused this dhamma to change to a kesra. And so because it's changed to a kesra because of its grammatical state, then we've used a ya instead of a wow. So the way that we can show now, that's important, the way that we show preserved plurals or regular plurals is with wow noon or with ya noon. And if it's feminine, then we use alif ta. And that's always going to be alif wa ta. Okay, so just to see what happened here. So we have salih. Okay, and this is where we saw words that are on the fa'il form. Salih. And then salih, if we're talking about a group of men, becomes salihun. So that salih is preserved, and we add a waw and a noon. And then for the feminine, we say salihat. Salih is preserved, and we add an alif and a ta. Okay, this is from Surah Al-Ahzab, which is chapter number 33 of the Quran, ayat 35. Okay, now this inna, it changes all of these preserved plurals to not take a waw and a noon, but to take a ya and a noon. That's a change that's happened because of inna. Again, we'll be taking that in book 2. We haven't taken that yet, but it is a change that's happened. But I just want you to see that ya and noon happen consistently. And I also want you to compare it to the feminine and see that no feminine change has taken place except for the inclusion of a kesra here. So Allah says, Innal muslimina wal muslimat. Muslim men and Muslim women. How do we know this is Muslim men? Because of the ya and the noon. The ya and the noon shows us that this is a preserved plural. Why has it been preserved and why is it regular? Because the word begins with a meme and a dhamma. Why does it have a ya instead of a waw? Because of inna. Inna's changed that. And so because this kesra has come on the last letter of the original word, then the plural is going to take a ya. Okay? Innal muslimina wal muslimat wal mu'minina wal mu'minat. And the believing men and women. Again, believing begins with meme dhamma. And so because of that, then it stays in the preserved state. So the ya and the noon is an indication that we're talking about men. And the alif and the ta are an indication that we're talking about women. Wal qanitina, wal qanitat. Okay, so this is on the fa'il form, like salih. So we see that in this case, the fa'il form is preserved. Qanitin, devoutly obedient, men. Wal qanitat, devoutly obedient women. Was sadiqeen. Okay, so here we have another word in the fa'il form that's preserved. Sadiq, yani telling the truth, someone who tells the truth. So the men who tell the truth and the women who tell the truth. Was sadiqat. Was sabirin, from sabara, also on the fa'il form. Those who are patient, patient men. Was sabirat, and patient women. Wal khashi'in, also on the fa'il form from khasha'a, meaning to be lowly and humble men and humble women. Wal khashi'at. Wal mutasaddiqin, and the men who give charity. Again, it's preserved, regular plural, because of the meme and the dhamma. Wal mutasaddiqat, and those women who give charity. Was sa'imin, from sawm, fasting, and so fasting men. Okay, so also on the fa'il form. Was sa'imat, and fasting women. Wal hafidhin, yeah, and those who preserving men. Al hafidhin, from hafidha. Furujahum, those who preserve their or protect their chastity, their private parts. Wal hafidhat, and the women who protect them as well. Wadhakirin Allah, and the men who remember Allah, from dhakara, also on the fa'il form, those who remember Allah. Kathiran, a lot. Wadhakirat, and the women who remember Allah much. So we have a nice ayat here, chapter number 33 of the Quran, Surah Al-Ahzab, the Confederates, ayat number 35, that lets us see that preserved plural, but used with the ya. And again, it's being used with the ya here because of inna. Inna made the change. We're not going to talk about what that change is. Just we know that there's a grammatical change because it doesn't have the waw and the noon. It has the ya and the noon. But that ya and that noon still makes it's still in the preserved form because the rest of the original word has stayed exactly the same. And we can see that the changes happen because muslimat doesn't have a dhamma. It has a kesra, which shows us that a change has happened. Okay? The last thing we want to look at is we want to look at pronouns. Okay? So the other thing that they introduce in this chapter, chapters number, the end of chapter 13 and the beginning of chapter 14, 13 Jeem and 14, chapter 14, they deal with pronouns, dhama'ir. And dhama'ir are mabni, that they themselves don't change. Now, there are different pronouns. You have subject pronouns, which is what we're looking at today. You have object pronouns, which we'll look at inshallah tomorrow. But subject pronouns, pronouns that are talking about who the sentence is about, no matter where they're at in the sentence, they don't change. Okay, so they are mabni. So we have this, we've taken the singular ones before, so we'll review those. We have ana, which means I, anta, which means you, anti, which means you, but we're talking to a woman, huwa, which means he, talking about a man, and hiya, which refers to a woman, she. Okay? Now, we'll take a general principle here, and that is, whenever we're talking about a group of men, then the pronoun, if we're talking about a group of men, is going to take a meme. That meme is for men. And if it's a group of women, then the pronoun, the dhamir, is going to take a noon. The noon is for nisa. So we're going to add a meme for men, and we're going to add a noon for nisa. If it's a mixture of men and women, then we're going to add a noon. Okay? A noon for neutral or neutered. And it doesn't have a gender, or it's a neutral gender. Okay? So we have noon for neutral gendered, if it's male or female. We have noon for nisa, and we have meme for men. Okay, so just keep that formula. So ana changes to nahnu. So we have a noon in the beginning, and we have a noon at the end. Okay, so the male is neutral and the female is neutral. So that's why we have the two ends there, to show that both genders are neutral. That this can be used for a group of men, and it can be used for a group of women. So nahnu could be a group of women speaking, and nahnu could be a group of men speaking. The n and the noon in the beginning is for neutral male, and the noon at the end is for neutral female. Anta with the ta at the top refers to a man, saying you, anta. Remember, we said that meme is for men. And so when we want to change anta to the plural, we say antum. That meme, is for men. Anti is you, but talking to a female. We said to change to a female, we're going to use a noon for nisa. And so anti becomes antunna. Anti becomes antunna. The noon here is for nisa. The meme here is for men. Here we have huwa, which means he. If we want to say they, and we're talking about a group of men, then again, we're going to add a meme for men. So huwa becomes whom. Hiya means she. If we're talking about a group of women, then noon is for nisa. So it becomes hunna. Okay, so hunna means they, but we're talking about women. Now you'll also notice that I've placed an asterisk behind whom and hun. And the reason for that is because this is going to be one of the easier pronouns to learn, because if it's a subject or it's an object, it stays exactly the same. There's no change to it. Antum is going to change, antunna is going to change, nahnu is going to change. But whom and hunna does not change. And you'll see some examples of this below. So it says here, hum mudarrisun. They are teachers. Wow in the noon. Hum tullab. They are students. Tullabun. Hum tullab. They are students. Hunna mudarrisatun. They are teachers. Okay, so hunna here is beginning the sentence. Hunna mudarrisat. Hunna tiwal. Hunna tiwal. They are tall. The women are tall. Baytuhum. Okay, so here it's not the subject anymore. It's the mudaf ilayhi. Baytuhum, but it's the same word. Their house, kabir. Why didn't we use kibar here? Because we're not talking about them. We're talking about their house. This is just telling us who the house belongs to. Baytuhum kabir. So I just want you to see it can be at the beginning of the sentence. It can be at the beginning of the word, or at the end of the word. It can be the subject, or it can be the possessor, and it doesn't change. Baytuhunna kabir. Same thing. This is hunna stays exactly the same. Why did we say kabir and we didn't say kibar? Because we're not talking about the women. We're talking about the house. So in each of these, we're saying their house. But here we know the house belongs to a group of men. And here we know the house belongs to a group of women. And in each instance, the house is what is big. Okay? So what we've taken so far is we've reviewed the concept of mu'rab and mabni. We reviewed the concept of broken plurals, and we've introduced the concept of preserved or regular plurals. And we said that preserved or regular plurals keep their form, and that we simply add a waw and a noon, or we could add a ya and a noon to the plural form. To the singular form. And for feminine preserved plurals, we add a aleph and a ta maftuha, taking off the ta marbuta. And we said that the broken plurals for feminine would be the same as the masculine, like kibar and sigar and so on. We also said that you're going to know to use the preserved plural for the masculine form from male words in certain instances. Number one, if it begins with a meme and a dhamma, like we saw Muslim, mu'min, and so on. If it's in the fa'al form, which shows occupation or shows that something is done a lot, like falah, like sama', like akal, we added waw and a noon to each of those. Falahun, sama'un, akalun. And also sometimes if it's in the fa'il form, like we saw sabirin, salihin, sa'imin, and so on, khashi'in. And again, even though we saw the ya and the noon, we know that it can also take a waw and a noon, so we could say sa'imun, khashi'un, salihun, and so on. Where we'd like to move now is we'd like to move towards the exercise that I would like you to do. The exercise that I would like you to do is I've placed some abbreviations at the end of some ayat from Surah Yusuf. And those abbreviations indicate what you can expect to find in the surah that I want you to look for and find. So if we come down to the bottom of the page, we have abbreviation key. If you see RPL, that means regular plural, meaning that it's salim, which means you should see a waw or a noon or a ya and a noon. But remember, you're looking for those forms, mim with a dhamma, or fa'al, or fa'il. BPL means broken plural, jamu taksir. That means some changes happen to the original form. And then we have PR, which represents pronoun or dhamir. And so here we see RPL, which means regular plural, salim, and we see PR, which means pronoun. Your job is to find each of these in the ayah. Now, when we talk about pronouns here, we're talking about plurals. That's our job here. So you're looking for the plural form here. So if we do the first one together, if we look at the very beginning, we can see here, nahnu. Good. Alhamdulillah, allow me to highlight. So we have nahnu. That's our pronoun. So we've got our pronoun done. So now we want to find our regular plural, not our broken plural. Okay, now I'm going to give you a hint here. You're going to find most of the the regular plurals at the end of the ayat. So here we have al-ghafilin. It won't let me highlight this way. No problem. So we have al-ghafilin. So what's our indication? We have a ya and a noon, and we have the fa'il form, ghafil. Okay, so ghafilin is the plural. Now, I would like you, as an extra step, to look up that word ghafala in the dictionary. Remember, our fa'il form means a doer of that action. So if you find ghafala, then you'll know that ghafil is a doer of what ghafala means. Okay, so ghafala means to be heedless, to be unaware, or to not be paying attention. So ghafil would be someone who is heedless, someone who is inattentive, someone who does not pay attention. Okay, so those are the two things that we were looking for. Our pronoun, our dhamir, which is nahnu, and our regular plural, which is al-ghafilin, which has the ya and the noon here, again, because it's on the fa'il form. When we come to the next one, it says only regular plural. So there's only one regular plural that we're looking for. So again, as I said, go to the end of the ayah, and there we see sajidin. Okay, so you see the ya and the noon. You see this is on the fa'il form. So that works for us. Fa'il form. Remember, three forms that use the salim, plural, that use the preserved plural. If it has a mim with a dhamma, doesn't matter what it is. If it has a mim with a dhamma, that's one. If it's on the fa'al form, that's two. Or if it's on the fa'il form, then sometimes it will be a regular plural. Okay, so sajidin here. So we know that it comes from sajada. Sajada means to prostrate. So I hear it said, so sajidin would be prostrators, or people who prostrate. In the next one, we have RPL, which means regular plural, preserved plural, jam salim. And so, again, if it's salim, then we said we expect to see it at the end. Now, here it's a little bit tricky because we have some we have that lamb and stuff added, which we've talked about in some of the previous classes. So you got to pay attention to those things that are added, like bas, like lambs, like fas, sometimes like wows. Those are generally what's going to be added. Fa, ba, lamb, and sometimes wow will be added. So take those lambs off and you're left with sa'ilin. Sa'ilin. Okay, so that ya nun is an indicator, and this is in the fa'il form from sa'ala. Sa'ala it means to ask. In Surah Al-Ma'arij, which is in Juz Tabarak, Allah says, sa'ala sa'ilun bi'adhabin waqi'. So this is sa'ilin. This is the plural. So askers, or people who ask. Here we only have a PR, which means we're only looking for a pronoun. We're not looking for any plural forms. And so if we look across, there we see nahnu. Okay, so that would be our plural form there. Here we have RPL, which means regular plural. So again, I'm going to go right to the end because that's usually where they're going to be. And we see salihin. Okay, so the ya and the nun is going to come off. The salih is in the form fa'il. So that's the plural, yani those people who are righteous. We come here, it says regular plural. Go right to the end. Okay, it says lanasihun. Remember, that lam can connect to the word and it can be problematic. Take that lam off. Lam and ba and fa connects to words. So don't let it deceive you. So take the lam off and you're left with nasihun. Nasihun. So we have a waw and the nun at the end. It's on the fa'il form. So those are the indicators. So it comes from the word nasih, which means we are sincere. Or it doesn't mean here we want to give advice because there's no advice. But it means we're sincere, that we are true to him, meaning that we have good intentions. Nasih. And the last one we have is lahafidhun. RPL, meaning regular plural. Again, that lam there at the beginning, la is extra. It's used for emphasis here. Take it off. Lam, ba, fa, those are extras that get added on. Hafidhun is in the fa'il form. So take off the waw and the nun and you're left with hafidh, yani we are protectors. Okay, so we haven't seen any broken plurals, those you took yesterday. Qasas is a broken plural that we took yesterday. So you are going to get some that say in your exercises say BPL, that say broken plural. Those are probably going to be the most challenging of the exercise, but I want it to be a little bit challenging. Okay, so this is the sheet you're going to get here. It says here on yours, independent practice. The previous one that I did with you said controlled practice with instructor. But this one that I'm going to send you is going to say independent practice. And so you have a collection of ayat, and you need to find those items. Each time you see one, that means one of them are in there. So here you see BPL twice. That means there are two broken plurals in here that you need to find. If you get stuck, you can't remember what those mean, then you'll go down here to the bottom of the page. There's a key that tells you what each of them means. Okay? So again, what have we taken today? We've taken the concept of regular plurals, what we've called jam salim. We have jam mudhakkar salim, of the masculine plural, which takes waw and a noon. Ya and a noon comes with three standard forms. If the word begins with a mim and a dhamma, or if it's on the fa'il form sometimes, or if it's on the fa'al form. We've also taken the feminine preserved plural, or jam mu'annath salim, which has an aleph and a ta at the end. We've also taken dhama'ir, pronouns, and we've seen that pronouns, when they become plural, they will either take a noon or a meme. They will take a meme if they are for men, or they will take a noon if they are for nisa, and if they are neutral, then they will take a noon as well, like nahnu, which has a noon at the beginning and a noon at the end. For hum and hunna, we said that that's an important one to learn because it stays exactly the same if it's by itself and if it's connected at the end of a word, regardless of how it changes in the sentence. The grammatical positioning changes it remains the same. Okay, so this has been video 2. It was a bit long, but I tried to give you a lot of repetition. Since we had a few new concepts, I wanted to make sure that I drilled those home. Please feel free to watch the video as many times as you need for those things to sink in. You may even, if you have the ability to in your car or whatever, if you have somewhere to go, just listen to it. Just let those concepts sink in. It's a little dense, but it's not. Again, it's not. I don't think this stuff is outside of your ability level. It's just, again, trying to put it into practice. You don't need to translate these ayat. You're only looking for isolated vocabulary and words and examples. Okay, so have fun with the practice, and inshallah tomorrow morning I'll be working on video number 3, okay, for day 3. So you'll want to try to get this done by Wednesday. By Wednesday evening you want to have this video done. If you do it on Tuesday, that's not a problem. I won't be checking. There's no sheet for you to fill in or anything like that. We're just covering these lessons. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.